What's up, headbangers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram at talklouder_podcast. And of course, our website, talklouderpodcast.com, where you'll find links to our merch and all of our previous episodes. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, and today we are joined by bassist Jack Gibson of Exodus, the great thrash metal titans, Exodus, Bay Area metal masters, legendary band. Jack has been in the band since '96. I guess I didn't realize he's been in the band that long.
One of the big six, if you throw Exodus and Testament in there. One of the
exactly.
Six. One big seven, you throw Overkill in there. One of the big eight, throw Dark Angel in there.
We're going to expand it to the Big Ten. But we crossed paths with Jack recently when we were out in Nashville for the Rockin' Pod Expo. Jason performed a pre-party, an event called Rare Hair, that was sort of a big jam session with various musicians coming together and doing cover tunes. And Jack was your bass player for a couple songs. And
I wouldn't say he was my bass player, but that's a funny way to
well,
look
you were
at
his
it.
singer.
Yeah, I was.
And you did Back in Black, and you did Another Thing Coming. So AC/DC and Judas Priest with Jack on bass. And I think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, that was sort of the catalyst for getting him on the show today.
Well, we talked about this in today's episode as well, but you and I were both at the Anthrax Black Label Society Exodus show down at San Antonio, and I had gone down at like 11 a.m. with Bobby Landgraf, who
that's what you have to do to beat traffic.
Well, of course, works for Rex Brown, and you know him from Honky and Godzilla Motor Company, and he was in Down, and our great friend Bobby.
Yes,
and so Bobby, he knows all those cats, and and I bumped into people all day that I knew on that tour. So we're down there lunchtime. So I find myself standing on the stage and during Exodus's sound check, and I'm literally shoulder to shoulder with Jack Gibson. Never met the man before in my life, and I'm hanging with Bobby and Black Label crew and blah 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 blah, blah. And Jack's right there, and no big deal. And I start to think, wait, is that the same guy that I'm going to be in Nashville with in a week?
Mm-hmm.
Doing that Rare Hair jam thing at the pre-party Rockin' Pod thing. And after their show, I had a chance to, say, hey, great set, and da 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 da. And I started, talking about the podcast and Rockin' Pod. And that was kind of the original seed, I guess.
Right.
But sealed the deal in Nashville, and he was gracious. And obviously, everyone will find out today, the guy is he's real as wood on a tree. So yeah.
And yet another guy who lives in Nashville has made Nashville his home. He says he's been there 6 or 7 years. And one of the things we learned about him today is he's got a deep love and knowledge of country music, which kind of makes sense that he landed in Nashville.
Well, he's a musician. He's obviously a multi-instrumentalist and has a footprint, and went to school for it. And he probably gives lessons and shit too. We didn't get into that, but I would imagine that if he doesn't, he could, or work for a school or whatever. Private lessons are probably the way to go. But he's an onion, tons of layers. And plays bass in Exodus.
Yeah, dude.
It's godly. Super fun cat. We learn his love for good songwriting via his fandom for Glen Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
Tells a story about how he saw a couple of Glen Campbell's very last shows on his very last tour, and the story about how he thought he had tickets, but he didn't. And he had a friend who got one of those, we know about that, even when you go to will call or you check your wallet or your cachet and you're like, wait what? I'm standing in line at a concert I don't have tickets for. Yeah, that shit's real, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, it's happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he was great.
You know, what's interesting is I believe Rob Dukes, who once sang for Exodus, worked with the men on your T-shirt.
Cassius King.
There's a connection with Dan Lorenzo and Rob Dukes as well. I think he did some songs with Patriarchs in Black. I don't, which is basically an incestuous thing with Cassius King on your shirt there today. So all related. You didn't even realize that the 6 degrees of separation is thick today here on the Talk Louder podcast via your T-shirt and our guest, which who's our guest today, Dave?
Jack Gibson, bass player for Exodus on the Talk Louder podcast. I saw you at the Rare Hair performance at the Rock and Pop thing. I don't know if that's what you and Jason were just talking about, but yeah, that was a good time. You and Jason were bandmates there for a couple songs. I saw something on the internet following that event. I don't know if Stevie Rochelle posted it or what, but it said your status in Exodus was in question after being on stage playing Poison songs with Stevie Rochelle.
Stevie is a funny motherfucker, man. You wind that guy up.
Well, you know, I really wasn't worried about it because a couple of years ago at the Rock and Pod, I did Soldiers Under Command with the singer for Stryper. So, I mean, you know, like I think that probably goes even further against the grain of Exodus, maybe. So
you might be right.
But it was killer. It was a great song. I mean, it sounded killer. He sings great still, man.
Yeah, don't get me started on Michael Sweet. He's the shit.
Yeah, he sang like a bird, man. It was awesome.
Did you know that dude was in Boston for a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did know that. I actually did know that, yeah.
So if you can sing Boston, you're a bad motherfucker.
Yeah, right.
If you can sing, you know, Steve Perry, Brad Delp, you're badass.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Totally. So are you I take it you're located in Nashville?
I am. Yeah, I moved here about 6 or 7 years ago, I guess.
What inspired you to kind of uproot? Because just to go, I mean, we're all over the place here, but that's okay. You're from the Bay Area or no?
Yeah, I'm from Sacramento, and then I moved to the Bay, you know, as soon as I was old enough to move. I came out here to take some pedal steel lessons. I had recorded a band out in the Bay that had come from Nashville, and then they were kind of this a real trippy blend of like hillbilly music and black metal.
Wow.
And it was,
I love that. I want to hear that.
Yeah,
it was pretty well put together. Actually, I'm doing a project, kind of a black metal project with the guy now, and it's going to be that. It kind of goes in between black metal and like dark bayou vibes type stuff. Yeah, and it's pretty cool. Like it's spooky as shit, you know.
Have you ever heard that band? Have you ever heard that band 16 Volt?
No.
I think I'm saying that right. It's this like Pentecostal preacher's son who wrote all this super swampy, dark as fuck, you know, have rituals in the swamp, you know, kind of voodoo rock. But it was sort of singer-songwriter, and it had banjos and fiddles and harp but it wasn't metal, but it was fucking so dark. I kept thinking, oh my God, my dark heart loves this shit.
Right.
Yeah. There's a band from here in Austin, Texas, that only plays periodically to hardcore fans. It's like a reunion every time. And I'm in a band with a couple of guys, but they're called Agony Column. Do you remember Agony Column? No?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you just opened up a whole spore of by putting black metal and, you know, the Agony Column was like, they called it hellbilly death metal.
Okay.
but it wasn't really death metal. It was more like, imagine if you took the Kentucky Headhunters and like forced them to play with even more, more gain and gent kind of shit. But a little chicken picking on the solos and King Diamond on vocals, and all the lyrics were about 4x4s and
that's close to that's close to us. Yeah.
Wow, definitely. That's cool. Yeah, Agony Column.
So you started in the Bay Area. You started recording this band from Nashville.
Yeah.
And then how did that transition into you getting to Nashville?
I've always had I have had a country band forever. I pick banjo and do upright and mandolin and all that stuff. And so we were talking, and one of the guys in the band played pedal steel and took lessons from one of the greatest pedal steel guys of all time, Doug Jernigan out here. And then, so we recorded and they went home, and maybe 6 or 7 months later, I had the itch to, take some lessons from that guy. So I moved out here for like 6 months just to take some pedal steel lessons. And I never took the pedal steel lessons, and I bought a house and stayed here instead. So
wow.
I got out here, and I love the city and all the musicians in it. And just the work ethic of the music people here and stuff. It was just, it kind of gave me a shot in the arm, and I didn't want to leave.
Is that like a big selling point? Because it sounds like you're comparing it to what in the Bay Area, and like, is it not any of that in the Bay Area? Is it
not anymore?
Be desired, or it's not happening?
Well, I mean, for one thing, there's no city like Nashville for musicians. There are thousands of guys that just kick my ass, and every night I go out, some kid is playing and he's awesome, and it's like going to school every night.
Wow.
I mean, they can't necessarily do what I do, but I cannot do what they do, and it's just inspiring every night. And so I just had to stay. I had to stay and live in this environment.
To hear you say that you get, well, you didn't say you get your ass handed to you every night you go out, but to say that you get schooled a bit every time you leave the house.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But they're not, they're not doing what you're doing. And,
I'm a little bit different.
You're obviously inspired, seriously inspired.
Oh yeah. I love it. I love it here. I mean, just, I even like going down to Broadway. A lot of the people that live here won't go near Broadway because it's kind of a mess. I mean, it's kind of, Vegas-ish.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's 200 bands playing at, any minute, literally. There's just bars and bars and bars with 5 floors and a band on each floor and the roof, and, people partying and stuff.
That's insane. That's kind of like we have our little version of that in Austin is 6th Street,
right?
Downtown area, and they're mugging.
And Nashville just blew up. It just blew up, and it's just $1 million, places. I mean, Dierks Bentley's got a place, and Alan Jackson's got a place, and like every country star, Kid Rock's got a place, and they're all these high rise, it's just it's a mess down there, but at the same time, it's kind of what brings money to this city and makes it cool.
Did you, when you were talking a minute ago about your background in, do you still have the band Coffin Hunter?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I haven't really done much because, just for one thing, the whole COVID lockdown, put everything in the locker. And since it's been open, I've only been doing Exodus because we've really been working hard and a lot. So I just haven't had time, for it. Yeah. And to be honest, when we got back to playing after the 2 years off, I was having trouble playing bass.
Yeah.
So I was like, for sure, I'm not playing the banjo when I can't do my job. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I had to kind of get myself back into the, the rhythm of actually playing this stuff. And so I've been playing banjo a little bit more lately, though. And I'm gonna do some more stuff. I just haven't had time.
How difficult is it to learn banjo? Because I've heard it can be, especially if you're going to be good at it. Is it more
first
challenging?
off, Dave, remember that it's a drum on a stick.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Once you get past it, you got a drum, then there's a stick on it. Oh shit! Someone put some strings on this thing.
Right.
It's the weirdest. It's the weirdest thing.
Is it more challenging? Was it more challenging for you to learn, say, than bass or guitar or other instruments?
I don't think so, because I had such a love for it. You know what I mean? Like I had such a love as soon as I got it and I started listening to bluegrass music and going, wow, like these guys are really good. And, then that kind of fed, I mean, it was just like me sitting in my room listening to Slayer and Metallica going, oh, that's cool. And learning it. Like it doesn't, your time goes by like that, when you really want to do it. So I ended up, and plus I I play fast stuff with my fingers anyway, so it kind of translated over pretty fast.
Wow.
Right.
And I was kind of off to the races pretty soon.
It almost sounds like you could have a second career at some point when maybe Exodus slows down and you're not doing the headbanging thrash kind of stuff anymore. You could possibly go do this bluegrass thing.
Yeah, that'd be fun. But to be honest, like I can pick that thing up and I can shred on it. But the guys who are really good, they're like another world good. You know what I mean? And like I really couldn't go just play in a bluegrass band because I'm not that good. Like I don't do all the Scruggs licks perfectly right, and and all that. And those guys, they're like the bluegrass people. They're worse than metal elitists or jazz, jazz assholes. They're like they'll literally get up. That's not bluegrass, and they'll just get up and walk away as you're playing.
Wow,
they're mean.
Wow.
So you gotta kind of watch yourself. Yeah.
How did your approach to bluegrass, given your metal background, your thrash metal background, how did that impact your approach to bluegrass? Was there any, translation, or were there things lost in translation because the two styles are different or similar? Or?
No, I mean, for one thing, I just went straight to playing fast shit. I think probably most people pick up and they start doing the slow stuff to get familiar with the instrument. And once I got the feel of the strings, I was just, right away. And so I actually have trouble playing the slow stuff, which is that's true with bass too. Like I spent so much time playing, at race car speeds that when I have to really just slow down and like get into the pocket, sometimes I have trouble,
Yeah,
like there's too much room in between these notes, and I'm like telling myself, whole stories in between notes, and sometimes it's hard.
Right.
You kind of feel the need to fill the dead space, and it doesn't necessarily need to be filled.
No, like I did a COVID jam of Ride On by AC/DC.
Oh.
And I mean, it's nothing. It's don't. It took me like 2 days to play it, where I was like, okay, that's it.
Right.
It isn't just don't. It's there's this groove in there. And if you're not, I had to stand up and I had to like do this to like find that real slow beat. I couldn't do it for a while.
It's really great. I'm going to pause us for a minute. It's really great to hear someone who plays in a legendary thrash band and gets it and has that, wears that hat all the time, turn around and be able to admit that it took you 2 days to find that pocket and to realize the impact and how monolithic negative space in music is.
Absolutely.
And when I got up at the Rare Hair to do Back in Black, I don't know if you heard me, but I looked at Jack, the drummer, and I think I said it in the fucking microphone. I go, not too fast. Make sure you're not too fast, because I've gotten up with plenty of, silly concoctions of bands and invitations, but to do whatever, any song, and they'll play it too fast.
Yeah.
And if you play Back in Black too fast, it's a different song.
Yeah. That's right.
So it's kind of So it's amazing. Now I feel like in thrash, when you got the peak, it's like thrash, you're on the ceiling like the whole fucking song, brrr, and then when those valleys come, that would be that version of Negative Space.
Right.
Like Slayer does really good valley, Exodus does really good valley, and then later on Metallica they would start in the valley and finish, just play all valley, right? Like Sad But True is all valley the whole time. You're just down in the dirt the whole time, which is Sabbath, or what you could say, AC/DC, Sabbath, classic rock, and to be able to be innovative yet still, but stay in that one place, is to be friendly with the Negative Space.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it's awesome to hear someone who is just like, I like how you said race car speeds, to understand the whole other side of it, and how it's a constant struggle for just a musician, because you're not just this, like, I'm going to quote a very Exodus thing, kill all posers. You're very you're open-minded to, you're a musician.
Yeah.
You're a musician who plays in a thrash band, killing all posers.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I really like about, like, real country music.
Yes.
Like, there's a band I go see here, they're called the Music City Playboys, and it's all like old backup, like real backup guys from like Alan Jackson and, like that era of dudes.
Yeah.
And like these guys got it down, and that pocket, like, they're not doing much, but they are, like, I sit there, I'm amazed by it, and it's just, it's the different sciences of different musics,
It's creating an emotional value with the song, with that valley or that pocket. It's totally. You start to become the song all of a sudden. Yeah. And if you're not, you're fucking dead inside and you have no soul.
Yeah, well, I've been accused of that too. So,
so Jack, you've been with Exodus since '96. What was your story before joining Exodus? Were you in any bands that we would have heard of? What was your trajectory before Exodus called?
Yeah, I actually was just kind of a guy bumping around the Bay Area. I'd had a couple bands and never went anywhere. And in fact, I never even like got to the point where we had like a singer and we were a band, you know what I mean? And and then but I was kind of in the radius of all the people in the Bay Area. And so my friend Sean Smithson was trying out singing for a band, and it had a couple of the guys from Exodus in it, and he needed a ride. And I was like, well, whatever. I haven't met those guys before. And, and he was like, yeah, they're hella cool. Just come on out, and we'll hang out. And so I took him out, and it was Tom and Gary, and they were doing a band called War Dance. And, their bass player wasn't there, and I took Sean out. Then again that week, bass player wasn't there, and I was like, well, where's your bass player? And they're all, oh, it's Mike Butler, who was the guy who played on the last Exodus record before me. And they're like, oh, he's in this band and this band, and he's in like 6 bands. He doesn't come and, he doesn't even show up and come and play. And I was like, well, fuck, I'll come every week, and I'm like, I'm not doing shit. I'll come play. That sounds good to me. I like it. And so Gary gave me the tape, and I ended up getting the gig, and Sean didn't get the gig. And
wow.
And so I was in War Dance with him for a couple years. We made a demo, and then when we were shopping it around, the best offer that we got was get Rick and Baloff back and do a live Bonded by Blood thing. And so that all just turned into, Exodus with Rick and Baloff back in the picture. So
Wow.
they asked Robbie if he wanted to do it, and he said he had no interest in doing it. And
Wow.
so I was there. I was already tight with Tom and Gary, and I was in.
You
Wow.
you were in those shoes already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Good thing
I've
you're a
just
nice
been there
guy.
ever since.
Good thing you're a nice guy and gave your buddy a ride to rehearsal.
Yeah, totally. And then totally usurped his gig.
Nice guy gets the gig, right?
Now he's in Exodus since 1996. That's
not always
right.
the nice guy that gets the gig, though.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So
I wanted to point out, because I'm definitely not an aficionado, but I have this the Bay Area and the scene there, and I talk about this on this podcast all the fucking time, that I have this obsession. Well, maybe that's a bit hardcore, but I'm attracted to, and always have been, like certain scenes, the New York, Jersey scene, of course, the Texas scene, the LA area, and how it's very, as far as thrash goes, very incestuous with the Bay Area. And then, of course, the crown jewel, the Bay Area scene, and that, all of that shit, and how that sort of ramped up kind of in an overnight sensation when, of course, Metallica started going up there, and then the whole Megaforce, and then the whole, Gary stepping in for Kirk, and that is so attractive to me. Just the whole Murder in the Front Row came out, and I was just like, this is like the Bible of what I'm attracted to. So, when you kind of squint and sort of look inside, 96, I mean, time flies. Dave, when you stepped in, that's what we were kind of talking about, is trying to grow old gracefully and still be attached to what we love and make sure that we still love it, right?
When you figure it out, let me know.
Yeah, right. Well, the whole point that I'm making in this long, elaborate, tear-jerking story is 96 is, in my brain, a flash. It's 10 years, but just after Exodus really kind of, Bonded by Blood comes out, and then 10 years later, you're in the band, and Exodus was kind of, I guess, over here cooling off, and War Dance is this thing. It's like that all is happening so fast, even though it's kind of 10 years after. Your journey from just kind of tooling around, playing in bands, from probably, did you go see Exodus play in 85 and 86 and 87?
I never caught Exodus. I was a little bit too young to, get out to the Bay. I was in a, kind of a strict home, and I was having to sneak out to smoke my dope and, and do my stuff. So that was a little bit far away. I had caught Megadeth and Testament and some of the other bands, but I hadn't caught Exodus. Yeah.
But as they say back in the day, you didn't get to catch them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you got to work with Paul.
Yeah. I was going to ask you.
That's kind of amazing, because, the live fast, die young reputation, and you got to play shows with Paul.
Yeah.
That's sick.
He was real. Like all that shit, man. He was that guy, He was funny. I actually learned a lot from Paul, though, too. I learned a lot about how people treat each other and stuff. Like, he was a master of people and their relationships between them,
Wow.
he was a manipulator of people as well. That's because he understood how people worked, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And so then that kind of turned him into the freeloader, that he was, like the kind of scavenger, freeloader that he was, because he knew how to navigate and survive. You know what I mean? He was pretty unique.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to ask you to tell us your best Paul Baloff story.
Yeah, real quick. That was a very nice way to say he was the guy living on your couch.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, musicians have been in living infamy on people's couches.
For sure.
Until they don't. I mean, I'm guilty.
Yeah. He left a trail of bills all the way through the East Bay. Well, like I heard that when we gave him the call to come back, and that we were going to do that live record, he was living in a Airstream trailer down in Santa Cruz area. And he sold it to two different people and left town. They both showed up to get it at the same time. They had to fight it out, and he was long gone with their money by then.
Oh man,
yeah, he was a grifter like that. He was funny.
Wow.
Well, that's a great Paul story, but I don't know if that's what Dave was looking for.
No, I'll take it. Yeah.
You're not you are and you're not speaking ill of the dead, because obviously you have a good, you have a positive kind of like.
I bet Paul would be the first to admit it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, we were it was so like wild, like when the band really got back together then in 97, and it was Paul and Rick, and they were fucking crazy, man. Like they were fucking crazy, and they didn't think it was going to last. So they were like, like they were going into the Bay and like stealing shirts and going into the parking lot and selling them, like before the show. And buying fucking stuff to consume, and it was just absolutely out of control, like wild shit. It was so rock and roll. I loved it.
Wow.
Like I was like a kid. I was like, I just got there, and I was like, this is fucking killing. You know what I mean? It was funny, man. It was killer.
Right. You just joined the band, and Paul comes back, and the circus starts. Right.
Yeah, totally. It was out of control, man. It was fun.
I guess I didn't really know how. I don't want to give him any nicknames. I'm sure Paul had plenty of nicknames, but I mean, he's a professional shit starter.
Oh yeah, he was. I
guess I didn't really know that about Paul.
Oh yeah, he was. I mean, really, like back in the day, even like before me, like those guys, you didn't like if they came to the party at your house was fucked. Like your house was fucked.
Okay.
Like they would kill. They would like Paul would like. Go into your dad's desk and take the pencils and the rubber bands and start like spear fishing the fish in the fish tank, and like shit like that. Like they had just like nothing was safe. They would like just take all the food out and cook it all and not eat it, and like that. I heard just crazy stories of
wow.
they take the pictures and hang them up upside down, and shit would get just destroyed. So,
he comes by his reputation honestly then. All of them, yes, yeah,
all of them, yeah. Especially back then, they were just out of control.
I'm feel lucky that I missed some of his antics, to put it light. But I was lucky enough to meet him in '86, in October of '86. And
cool.
Obviously he wasn't in the band anymore, but he may have had Piranha or something at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was I think he was promoting shows at the MAB and at Broadway on Broadway who's doing that. I mean, promoting shows mean no one got paid.
You mean like running off with the box?
Yeah, no one got paid. Is it? Hey, how many tickets sold? Oh, okay, that's good. Can you hand me? Okay, cool. I'll see you tomorrow.
Exactly.
Ron Quintana set up some shows for Watchtower, and we played a couple of shows out there, and Paul was there hanging around, but I think he was there to get the money and leave. So So
let's talk about this real quick.
Yeah, this is this is an incredible moment in history. And where did you guys record that?
So,
by the way, for those who are listening, not watching, we're talking about the latest Exodus record, Persona Non Grata.
That's Persona Non Grata, yeah. We actually recorded it up at Tom's house. The last several records, we haven't gone into a real studio in a very, very long time. Sometimes what we'll do is go in and record the drums in a big studio where you have the big room and all the mics and all the inputs and all that stuff. But this time we had it all ourselves. We got our buddy Steve Lagudi, who was he used to be sound man for Machine Head and a lot of other bands, and he brought all of his Midas stuff over. And Tom has like a barn shed by his house, and we just set up in there, and we took all the time that we needed to do whatever we wanted. We actually got to leave the drums set up. So like at a couple points halfway through the record, Tom decided he wanted to change something, and he just went in, played it, changed it, and it was in.
Right.
Wow, and it was just a really relaxing experience. We'd have somebody be in there working, and the rest of us are outside barbecuing and throwing the Frisbee around or hiking through the mountains. It's Tom's place is up in a place called Lake Almanor. It's way up kind of by the Nevada border, up there by Lassen, and it's just up in the Sierra Nevadas. I mean, It's just beautiful up there. So it was just a really cool experience. We stayed up there. Most of us stayed up there the whole time. Lee would kind of go back and forth to his family. Everybody went kind of back and forth, but yeah, man, it was really, really a good experience, really relaxing.
You were living in Nashville at the time during the recording?
Yeah, but I just went back out to California. We were all staying at Tom's house.
Okay.
And then we rented a house for the month up there.
Good.
Like his cousin had a really cool vacation, weekender vacation home, and he gave us like a really good deal for the month. And it was just up the street from Tom's. And
how many of you guys were staying in the rental?
Like 2 or 3. So it was kind of cool. Tom stayed at his house, Gary stayed at Tom's, and Steve Lagudi stayed at Tom's. So they were all there all the time. And then, so for most of it, it was just me and Zetro at this gigantic house on the river. I was kicking it, man. I actually kicked it a little too hard. I was, I was like, I got to go play some bass, goddammit. But so it was just a really, really relaxing time. And it gave us the time to not hurry and, go back and fix things that we wanted to fix. And,
were you, I'm sorry to be pushing this, but were you writing while recording, or were the songs pretty much demoed out already? And
mostly they're done. Like kind of the way we do it is Tom and Gary get in a room for a couple months, and hammer most of the songs out, just half stack and drum set. I used to kind of go and sit in on it and stuff. And I just realized I was getting in the way. I was just taking time away from the real creative burn, that can go on between those two. And, so now I just wait till they're, Gary calls me and he goes, all right, we're going to start. And once we have about 8, then it's time to start doing it. 'Cause Gary will write a couple in the studio at the last minute, and then we'll all have to learn it. Those are usually like the barn burners, or he turns them in at the 0 hour, and we all have to like get it and play it. But so he kind of stays creative through that whole process. Once he turns on, man, he's like a machine. It's he's like Gary's the real deal, man. Like once he starts working, like he does everything, and every note goes by him, and he knows what the cover's going to look like and what the mood is. He knows it's his thing, from front to back, basically.
Well, he nailed it, but I need to kind of step to the side and go, you guys nailed it. This record kind of brought back Exodus.
Yeah, I second that. I was going to ask, it was 7 years. There was a 7-year wait between the last album and this one. So, and some of this you just explained, you guys had the luxury of being able to take your time, whatnot. COVID gets in the middle of all that, I'm sure. But after 7 years and this thing comes out and the reviews across the board were just phenomenal, man. You guys had to have been stoked at the response you got from it.
Yeah. It was a little weird though, actually. I mean, the whole 7-year thing was really because of Gary and Slayer. Like we didn't want to make a record and then have to tour it without Gary and stuff. So that was an extra long time. We were waiting for that thing. But and then also, we made it, like we went in and recorded it about 3 months into the pandemic. We had no idea what was, that we were going to be. So we made it, we sat on it for almost a year. We still things were locked down, and the label said, you got to put it out. So we put it out in the middle of COVID, and then couldn't tour it or anything. So, basically everything that happened, then it's kind of a mulligan. Like we don't even know what the numbers meant, and you know what I mean? So, it got the critical acclaim that we wanted, people liked it. Yeah. So hopefully the next one is a step in the same direction. And now that things are a little bit back to normal, we can really, do something and take off with it.
Yeah. Tell me about the artwork. This is an amazing piece of artwork on the album cover.
Dave, you got some signatures on that thing or no?
Yeah, all the guys. This is my son's. We saw you on the Bass Strikes Back tour in Austin, Texas, and my son, who is now 15, he was 14 at the time, was standing out in front of your bus.
I love this story.
And Lee was on the phone outside the bus, so I told my son, "You got to wait till he's done with that phone call." And so he did, and then he approached Lee and asked for his autograph, and Lee signed it. And then Lee went on the bus, and then my son and I were standing outside the bus, and Gary sends one of your road crew out of the bus, and he says, "Hey, Gary's in there. He wants to know if you want that signed." And my son says, "Yeah, please." So we kind of walked to the front door of the bus, and Gary and the guys, all you guys came to the stairs at some point, signed it. And then my son is handing Bonded by Blood, and he goes, "Just Gary and Tom on this one."
That's
and
good.
Gary was very impressed that he was so specific about that request. But yeah, all you guys were really cool. We were in the parking lot. We just got dropped off. We were in the parking lot 5 minutes, and this whole album was autographed by every guy in the band. And then at some point later in the night, that same road crew guy passed me in the crowd. The show was going on, and I stopped him and I said, "Hey, man, thanks so much for making that happen. That was really cool. You made my son's day." And he goes, "Dude, that was all Gary. He saw your boys standing outside. He saw them through the windshield of the bus, and he told me to go get them." And he says, "I was happy to do it, but that was all Gary." So,
sorry to throw a crowbar in the middle of the whole thing. The artwork, Dave.
Yes, the artwork. Tell us about the artwork, Jack.
I don't know shit about the artwork.
He's honest.
Well, that's when you go, man, I'm just a bass player.
Well, he did say just a minute ago. He said just a minute ago that Gary sort of conceptualized everything, and he even said
he does.
The album cover and everything. So
yeah, he does.
I was just curious.
I know it's kind of a there's a little bit of a play from the last album because there's the little pod with the baby in it in the front, and there was like the whole row of the pods of babies on the last one. So I think this is like the next step of the evolution of the, whatever the art on the last one, man. I don't fucking know, man. Gary does it, and it's kind of like, it's kind of like a comp, it's Gary and the artist, like Gary goes, oh, I need something like this. It's called this and something like that. And then the guy will send a couple sketches and Gary's like, yeah, but a little bit, like Gary looks at it and then he gets an idea. Oh, maybe, or the blood isn't red enough, make it redder, or, like they kind of go back and forth, and then it is what it is,
Yeah. That sounds like a not to dumb it down, normal process for the visionary. It's the normal process.
It's a beautiful piece of work. I mean,
it's immaculate.
Yeah,
the color scheme is incredible.
Do you know the artist's name, Dave?
No, I meant to look at the credits.
The artist's name.
Man, I've met him, and I'm just, I'm too old to remember these things. I get it. Now. Well, but it's the same guy.
Yeah, that right there is a frameable piece of art. That is,
man. The backdrop. We have it on our backdrop.
Yeah,
and man, like the blue and the red in it, man, they look so good under the lights. Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great album. It sounds great. It looks great. It was 7 years in the making. I forgot you made a very valid point about Gary being busy with Slayer. That would kind of prolong things. But I think it's well worth the wait by all accounts. I mean, it was critically acclaimed. I hope you guys are happy with it. I, as a fan and as a listener, I was thrilled with it. So,
I always have that. I have that problem where like I'm never fully happy with it.
Yeah.
Like as an artist, there's a point where you just have to like cut the cord and say it's done, because especially today, like the way we make records today, like you can just keep tweaking on it and you can just keep improving it and keep fixing things and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And like now, like the art is learning when to stop that, and let some of the humanity go, but not enough to make it sound like there's mistakes in it or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's funny because like, working on music like that now, I'm so detail oriented. I listen to old music that I've loved forever and I hear all these mistakes in it now. Like old live shit like Van Halen and stuff. And I'm all, oh, he fucked up right there. You know what I mean? And it's like, like we're not used to that now. Our ears don't, like now that jumps out at me like, oh, I'd have fixed that, and it's like, oh, you couldn't fix it. They were playing it live,
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's another good point. It's possible to lose the spontaneity by maxing out technology and fixing every little thing.
Absolutely.
So, and I think spontaneity is really important for a band like Exodus, because I mean it's all about the emotion and the speed and the aggression and that sort of thing. Aggression shouldn't be sterilized.
No, there's a push and pull in that kind of music, especially like in even more so in thrash than in death metal. Like death metal is almost has even a stronger pulse, like a straight pulse, but metal, like you said, the valley, the peaks and the valleys, and it's about, like pulling that, that slow part back even just a little bit more and finding those exact right, grooves, even at high speeds,
A lot of people don't realize, and this is just my brain vomiting. A lot of people don't realize that, in my opinion, that slow is heavy. Fast is not.
Yeah.
Slow has weight.
Yeah.
Right? When you're on the ceiling, you got nowhere else to go. It's just, rat-a-tat-tat. But as soon as you drop at any point below, in the red, when you cool it off just a little bit, it starts to get heavier and heavier and heavier.
Mm-hmm.
And example, just go listen to Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
because it's fucking the heaviest song ever. It's so heavy. Yeah.
Has being in Exodus afforded you the opportunity to meet any of your heroes?
Oh God, most of them, man. You know, yeah, totally. I mean, Slayer, Metallica. You know, like, you know, I haven't met Lars, but I've met the other guys, and you know, and then meeting them kind of on a peer level instead of, you know, like as a fan.
Yeah.
Not that I'm, you know, peers with Metallica or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, well, I mean, it got me to meet Glen Campbell.
Oh, tell us about that. That's awesome.
I went to go see Glenn, on his last tour, and it was up in Reno, and somehow I had bought tickets, and then I had fucked up and they never came. Like, I guess I didn't push the last, you know, are you really sure you want them? Are you sure you want them? So like a couple days before the concert, I was like, oh fuck, I don't have tickets. Like, and so my lady that I was working with at the time just called the casino and got me a comp ticket somehow. Wow. She was, you know, she had the gift. Wow. And so I went, and then she was like, you know, make sure to find that guy and thank him for, you know, for comping your ticket. And I was like, yeah, totally. So I put my red suit on and went up all by myself and went in, you know, and I was totally pimping. And I went and found the guy, and I was like, hey man, you know, thank you for hooking me up, man. I thought I'd had the ticket. I'm just too old for this shit. And he was like, yeah, man, it's totally cool. I love Exodus. I work out to that stuff all the time. And he's like, you know, if you want, come at the end and I'll put you in the line for the meet and greet.
Wow.
And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to meet and greet. So I went and stood in line, and, you know, and went in, got my picture, met him, shook his hand, you know, told him his kids were awesome. And I have the picture still. It's like my favorite picture I've ever had, you know, like he's in a blue suit and I'm in a red suit, and it's like totally killer. So it comes up every year on his birthday, which was yesterday. And as a matter of fact, I went to a Glen Campbell tribute last night here in Nashville, and his whole family was there. And Jimmy Webb, who was a songwriter back in the 70s. I mean, he wrote Wichita Lineman, Galveston. By the time I get to Phoenix, he wrote Up and Away and My Beautiful Balloon.
Oh my God.
And he wrote Highwayman. He wrote all these songs, and then he was there and he played all those songs, and then talked about, you know, I wrote it like this, Glenn played it like this, and like and it was really cool. So,
wow, that's awesome. How was Glenn at that point? Because I know late in his years, I mean, there was some talk of him not even touring because his health had deteriorated so much.
Right.
And then I think there was points where he was having trouble remembering lyrics or something to that effect. So, but he did manage to pull off a final tour, like you said, and you got to meet him. So
yeah, I saw him twice on that tour. So I saw him kind of earlier on, and that was at the casino. Was the first time I saw him, and he had Alzheimer's, so he had really bad Alzheimer's at the time, and you could see him, like, he would kind of lose it every so often. Like, he'd be playing and everything was cool, and then you'd see him and he'd be kind of like looking, and it was right back into it. He would like snap like right back. It was pretty profound, actually, you know. Like watching him just like find himself again and be in the moment all over again and stuff. Wow. And so it was good. It was kind of bittersweet. It was good and it was a little bit painful. But I'm glad I got to see it. I actually got to see his last show ever too. I didn't know it, but it was in Napa right by my house. And then that was consequently the last show of that tour. And then they didn't take him out again after that. So
his daughter was in the touring band, and
his daughter and his two sons, actually.
Holding the family band together was probably the saving grace for that tour.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
It's a great story.
Amazing.
Great story. And
the
I'm
kids
glad
are
it happened.
awesome. Yeah. Like, the kids can play. They can play great all of them. Like
Wow.
she plays the banjo so good. It's
Wow.
Well, I've
cool.
Glen Campbell was one hell of a guitar player. You might not know it from his recorded output, but I've read
Right.
stuff like behind the scenes. I mean, he could throw down.
Oh yeah, man.
He just strikes me as sort of this unassuming crooner guy, but apparently he was one hell of a guitar player.
Well, he was in the Wrecking Crew. So I mean, there was years where he did like 350 tracks.
Yeah, yeah.
He did all the Beach Boys stuff. All the he was on Strangers in the Night with Frank Sinatra, and I mean, all these great, all those old songs back then. It's him on the electric guitar.
Yeah, the stories you hear about all those old pop songs and big band songs and things like that, if they need a guitar player, he was one of the guys.
That's right.
For years.
That's right. For years.
For probably 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, he's one of the only ones that actually, had his own solo career out of that group of players. Most of them, they were making so much money doing the studio work, they didn't want a chance like losing that revenue by going out and going on tour. So he was one of the only ones that actually even ever had a solo career.
Similar to or related to the Motown story about the bands that the guys that just hung around the studio all day and they just changed the singer. Yeah.
Same with here.
Yeah,
it was the A-Team. It was those guys. They're on all those old recordings, like every single one of them. So
yeah. Wow, I'm glad I asked that question. What a great story about Glen Campbell, and I'm so glad it happened to you because you obviously have an appreciation for that type of music. That's
man. I love him. Yeah, he was one of the greatest. Yeah.
So you admit to Jack Gibson, thrash metal bassist for legendary Exodus, Bay Area Kings. Would you call yourself a music nerd?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because I like, and I've played all kinds of styles of music. I backed up a flamenco guy for a while. I was in like a Sublime kind of punk reggae skater, type band, metal bands, country music.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter. Like I recorded with really hardcore rap dudes where I was almost afraid to be in the studio with him and shit. I was like,
whoa,
shit. Are we gonna get killed here?
Sketchy situations with guns on the table and shit.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, let me ask you this: after you've kind of told us that, now we know that. At what age were you starting to sort of like branch out? I mean, did you grow up just like the rest of us? You got a Kiss record or a Priest record, and I don't know, Bay City Rollers, Led Zeppelin, something like that.
For me, it was Rush.
Rush, nice.
Yeah.
So when you started to branch out as a musician and play different styles of music, how far into your, I'll loosely call it a career, because usually when you're a teenager and you're growing into your instrument kind of thing, when did you start playing with other styles of music with other musicians outside of your
I guess band? pretty early because I'd only really picked I knew how to play the guitar from like guitar lessons when I was young, and I played piano and stuff like that, but I didn't really start playing like heavy music or anything until I was right at the end of high school. Okay. Like a bunch of my friends played guitar and I kind of noodled on their guitars. And then one of my friends said, why don't you get a bass? Like you can play that thing, get a bass and you can play with us. So then I started playing bass. And then like 2 years later, I went to BIT at MI. Like I took lessons. I started learning actual, I was so into Billy Sheehan, so I wanted to know how to go.
Didn't we all?
Didn't we all? So so I started learning, like all the modes and keys and all that stuff, and then my buddy was going to GIT, And I just walked in the door with my bass and like took the test in person, and I fucking passed. I was like, well, fuck, now I got to pay for this. So I ended up going to BIT like real early in my playing career, and then that really set like this base for me to learn anything I wanted later. They make you do that kind of thing. Like you got to play blues, and you got to play this, and you got to do jazz, and you got to play rock, and you got to get up in front of people, and you got to play music with people you've never met, where everybody shows up and the guy goes, you, here's your sheet, come back and play it in 5 minutes. And you got to go in the room and like go through it a couple times with dudes you've never met, and then come back in the room and play it, And so it geared me up to just kind of do whatever the fuck I wanted,
Wow, that's amazing. I'm not calling you names by calling you a bass master, but because you have that sort of diplomatic title of BIT graduate, because you took the test and you paid.
I didn't graduate.
Well, okay.
Can't take that. I didn't graduate.
But you passed some kind of test.
Yeah.
You were able to.
I took off early. I just took off early because the last quarter was like having fun. It was live playing workshops and kind of parties. So like the learning was done, and I had a band that wanted to move back up to the Bay Area, and I wanted to go with them. So I left school a little bit early. So I just didn't stick around for the final.
Right.
The final thing, but so I had got what I wanted.
You did all the climbing, and you were an excellent climber, and you get to the top of the peak, and from here it's just downhill. The rest of it is just this rest of this shit is free. You deserve it. And you're like, what? I get to go play rock and roll with my buddies back in the Bay.
Yeah, right.
I'm going. That sounds right. It sounds like you knew what you were there for, and you never lost sight of that. That's fucking great. But you still now you get to play jazz and blues and punk and country and whatever you want, because you kind of did the work. That's kind of that's a bass master. You've got something. Yeah, it's pretty good, dude. You're in fucking Exodus. That's all I got to, people can walk home and go, that dude's in Exodus. Oh shit. Not to make fun of it, but I think it's cool.
So is it just me, or was the Bay Strikes Back tour just a long tour? I felt like you guys were out forever.
We kept, it sold. So they kept booking leg 3 and leg 4. Oh, let's go to Europe, and let's go back over there. And now we're doing that show in Japan in September now. So
awesome.
So how is that? So you're out on the road and the tour is selling well, and you've got to be happy about that. But at the same point, you're kind of like, you're seeing the finish line. You're almost about to go home and get a break, and then somebody hits you with another run of 4 weeks or something like that. Is it like, oh man, or do you just kind of just run with the enthusiasm of it all?
I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, you got to go to work. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's with Testament and Death Angel. It's actually a little bit easier because we know all of them guys, like it's like a family. I mean, like we've opened for Testament entirely too many times. You know what I mean? So there's kind of like, God, more Testament shows, but at the same time, like, they're our homeboys, and it's an easy group of people to be around, and we're all family. If something goes wrong, we all help each other out, and it's just kind of, so it's and if it's not Testament, it's Anthrax, or what I mean, or Creator, or what I mean, like we're going to be out doing something with somebody.
Right. So, might as well be people you get along with and that sort of thing. Speaking from a fan, I mean, that lineup was great, man. I mean, whoever put that package together really was looking out for the fans, because I remember that being announced, and I was thinking, wow, That's a great triple bill.
Well,
and so was, by the way, the recent Anthrax Black Label run that you did. Me and Jason saw you in San Antonio. That was another great triple package, man.
Someone's being smart when that shit comes together. Back to the Bass Strikes Back. Yeah. That's kind of like Murder in the Front Row celebratory on tour.
Almost.
It's also a historical monument to that whole thing, obviously. But I was going to say, even with shall I say, just the lineup, the personnel, whether it be, there's only one original guy. Oh, there's two original guys. Oh, there's three original guys. One guy's got to go. Testament with the drummer, Gene and Dave. And then whatever. I'm not really trying. That's not really the merry-go-round is not what I'm bringing up. I'm bringing up the faces are changing only slightly, but it's like it's not like you don't know the guy that's in the saddle now.
Yeah, right.
That's what the point I'm making is that
even
the family. There's not really any unknown.
True.
Between when you talk about the great drummers and Gene and Dave and Tom and Tempesta and whatever Paul Baloff, that just it doesn't. You guys are all there, and it's all family, and you're all there. It's amazing. So let's talk about, if you don't mind, some personnel in the singer's position in Exodus. I have this thing about Baloff that he created this. I really do believe, so I'm waiting for someone to correct me. It's kind of a funny way to say it, but I call it the Scooby-Doo, where he's kind of, I know I'm poking fun, but I think that in thrash metal, that sort of, if you're not a melodic singer, that is a way for you to have this upper thing and this lower thing, sort of marry them and create this sort of painting over speed metal. And I think as a singer, I appreciate any vocalization of any kind. I love cartoon voices. I like opera. I like female vocal. I like guttural Black Death, and I like silly vocalization. It's all art. So when you think about Exodus, that is kind of this very fitting. You think about Tom Araya. I get him as like this, like a hardcore singer. He sings like a hardcore singer. Like I hear Agnostic Front DRI vocal approach with Tom Araya, even though Slayer has always written off like, we're the biggest Judas Priest fans in the world. Because they took a lot of songwriting styles from Priest and just ramped them up times 2, times 200. I should probably say. But I, you worked with Paul, and you worked with Zetro, and didn't you work with a couple of other guys too that were fronted Exodus?
Rob,
Rob,
that's Duke, right. Yeah. So. How did the vocal approach change, and did it change the way Gary and Tom wrote, do you think, or?
Good question.
I went deep there. I've
I don't think it changed the way that they wrote, that like Tom and Gary wrote, but each guy definitely has his own approach, to the way things, to the way they do things. Baloff was a little difficult to
This keeps coming up.
Sensing a theme.
Like it was hard to get Paul to focus for very long. I mean, that's one thing about Zetro is like, he's there, he's on time, he's got the lyrics, and he knows them. Like, that's one thing about Zet. Like, he does his fucking job, and if you give him 3 songs to learn, he learns them. You know what I mean? And he remembers those words. Like when Zet messes up a word, he's pissed. Like, he's mad at himself. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And it's like Baloff couldn't remember shit. He mumbled his way through everything. You know what I mean? But
I do know what you mean.
You know what I compare it to? Like, Baloff is David Lee Roth and Zetro is Sammy Hagar.
Wow.
Right. Like, Sammy had a more straightforward, like, professional approach. Dave was fucking the words up and falling over, and we're like, yeah, fuck yeah, Dave. You know what I mean? Because he meant it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Baloff was the same way. Like, he was technically, a shitty singer, but he lived it so much that
believable.
It came out. It was real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, that was Baloff's power, to make up for the fact that he really couldn't sing well or remember words, which were 2 important things when you're a singer. Again.
Yeah, I like the sort of sway of the needle when you think about, well, do you want professionalism and, the guy runs a tight ship and he's got it fucking down and we're never going to have to stink eye this guy. He's always going to be there, like checking all the boxes, like you said. Or do we want authentic, who's like this? You got to worry about him showing up. All of the boxes are unchecked.
Exactly.
You want authentic. The David Lee Roth or the Paul Baloff, where it's authentic as fuck.
Right.
And but are you the fan who's going to want it to be just shit tight all the time, or you don't know what you're going to get with the front guy?
Right.
It's an interesting. I see both sides of the coin for sure.
Yeah, they're both good. I mean, I like both singers. I like Dave. I like Sammy. But I think I like Dave better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But think of it this way: like, what if Sammy had been the singer before, and then they got Dave, and been like, who's this fucking guy? He sucks.
Wow,
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
because the standard would have already been established.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that you say that.
Yeah, I love your perspective. I think that you sort of like handed me a golden platter of the idea there that where Steve is and where Paul was is so black and white.
Yeah, and Rob was kind of in between.
Okay.
Like, Rob, he was like, he wasn't as like professional as Zetro was, because Zetro done it for a lot longer,
Right.
And Rob would forget words a little bit and stuff, but he was also very like physically present on stage. Like, he was very intimidating. Like, we were a really mean band when Rob was in the band.
Yeah, that record.
Like we were mean, you know what I mean? And like, we were, fuck you, and that
record,
because Rob was kind of that hardcore, Phil Anselmo style, like in your face, guy. So,
well, if I may speak frankly, just as a fan, when I heard that record with Rob on it, I was taken aback by this. Doesn't sound like Exodus. For if I'd have to really squint and make sure, look, the album cover, okay, it says Exodus on the record. It was really different for me. Being an older thrash metal fan, from me, and it took me out a little bit. Did it take some getting used to for you guys as the lineup that you had in this?
Well, I mean, as the band, not really, just because, it's the music that you write. You know what I mean? Like, the music that you write, it depends on the people that are there and who's taking part in it at the time. So, like, we were just trying to make the best, sonically correct record, you know, that we could at the time, and use the tools that we had. So like Rob had some tools that Zet didn't have, you know, which was like this ferocity type of thing. And so we tried to use it, you know what I mean? And you know, music just kind of comes out the way it's going to come out. If you try to steer it too much, it isn't going to sound good. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, so it just kind of was what it was. We were a different band at the time, you know? And, so,
you know,
that's one of the things, kind of like when we heard Zet sing on the stuff again, we had him come in and demo stuff. And as soon as he sang, we were like, yeah, that's going to have to happen. Cause then again, you know, all of a sudden we could hear that old Exodus vibe. It was, you know, there just instantly. And so like, that's what he brings, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Which I think is what that goes back to what I was saying, what fans are used to.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. And then that odd record, I hate calling it that because it makes me feel like I'm saying something negative about it, and I'm not. Here's where I'm going with it. That might be, you know, the Rob record. That might be some people's favorite Exodus record. Have you run into that before? Sure.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, like younger kids, you know, they liked it. That's the one they grew up with. You know what I mean? And it's, you know, you run into this all the time. Like you find, you know, like I remember running into a kid and his favorite Maiden album was Seventh Son of Seventh Son. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like, you know what I mean? But that's the song. That's the album. That's the album that he got. I'm like, bro, there's Killers and shit. Like, what are you doing? You know, but it was the one that he grew up with, and so that's his reference point, and that same thing would happen, you know, like
it's your first love. I think that it's what you fall in love with, and that's not your fault. I mean, that's all you know, and then you don't know until you do, and then you figure it out.
Exactly.
So people have to fall backwards to figure out where it comes from.
Exactly.
That shit's very, very, very real. Even if you're a music lover, you have to figure out your path. So.
Yeah,
I have a gratuitous question for Jack. And,
I love these.
Yeah, and it's because of the line of work he's in. I'm curious to know your thoughts on the new Metallica record.
I haven't heard it.
Okay.
I'm guilty of that too.
I heard a little bit of the first song that they put out, just a few.
Lux Eterna?
Yeah, just a couple things. And I mean, it sounds like Metallica to me. I mean, you know, they're not, they're not the same band either. They're not trying to do the same stuff that they were. And, so it's not really my, you know, cup of tea, but I mean, I can't, you know, at the same time, like I can't, you know, what am I going to do? Like talk shit to them for being the biggest band of all time, you know, they did what they wanted to do and they fucking kicked its ass. And so, Metallica's Metallica. Like they have their own fucking economy, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They own the venue.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
They own the radio station that their songs are number one on.
They did just go buy they just buy a record pressing plant?
Yeah.
Yeah, they bought a vinyl plant.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
So they are the music industry. You know, they don't have to bite their own tail anymore. They're a brand, and they're the trendsetter now.
You know, and Metallica's always been that band that kind of cut it in half, like music wise. Like Exodus was trying to we're gonna make the baddest riff. It's gonna be the fucking baddest riff, you know, and Metallica's like, you know, we're gonna reach the most people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, like it's two different philosophies. You know what I mean? Metallica was wanted to be the biggest band. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so their technique was taking like music like we play, and like I don't want to say cutting it in half, but like
straddling the line,
making it accessible to people that are like, oh, that shit's too heavy. Like then they were playing to those people and bridging that gap. You know what I mean? And they were doing that. Like they were doing that back then, even, you know, even with Master of Puppets and stuff, they were already doing that. And that's been their strategy the whole time.
They've been straddling that line since Fade to Black.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And they won. Like they win.
Even with Bell Tolls, I think Bell Tolls, Fade to Black, songs like that, they really straddle the line. Those are perfectly written songs, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally.
Because that was their first, especially with Bell Tolls, where they kind of had sort of the time change in the outro, bam, 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 which is so metal. And but the the big plotting, 100 BPMs or whatever, and oh my God, and that was fucking early for metal. It was still early for metal. So you have that perspective, and also throws me. And I know you're a Rush fan, so you'll totally get this. When you know what Rush did, it's the same fucking thing. So they were writing all this crazy, hippie upside down Pink Floyd, King Crimson, yes, kind of like, we're freakish, and singer has a weird voice and blah, blah, and all this crazy notes everywhere and blah, 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 blah. But it's, stoner hippie, from the Shire, kind of J.R. Tolkien, Zeppelin on speed, whatever. And the label is going, you guys kind of need to write something that someone can like tap their foot to or something.
Right.
And they were like, well, okay.
Here's 2112.
That was a fuck you. Yeah. So they give 2112, but then it broke, thank God, because that was like the Justice for All, they fuck you. And that, one song with eight or nine riffs in it. And it's like songs like 9 minutes long and blah, 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 blah. Right. That was their 2112. So the next record or whatever, they start to straddle the line, and they figured it out. Moving Pictures is Rush's Black album. They finally figured it out. They were really able to straddle the line and give it to mass audience without really losing any scope. You're agreeing with this for Metallica.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought up 72 Seasons. I heard the second single, can't remember, something about anger. Anger had a face.
Anger, if darkness had a son or something.
Darkness had a son. Thank you. If anger had a face.
I kind of like your title better.
Thanks, man. I might use that. Sure.
If anger had a face.
Well, that's obvious.
That's great, man.
So
that'll be on the next album.
So this is cool because you're a banjo person. I have this friend, Danny Barnes. You ever heard of Danny Barnes?
God, I kind of want to say that I have.
Rules.
He is a banjo master. He's on YouTube and shit. He's everywhere, but he's from around here. He lives in Seattle. He's been in Seattle forever. He played actually in the Dave Matthews Band for a little while, but he's kind of his own. He's his own guy. I know, and the musicianship standard of people who play, right?
Yeah.
So he can hang. When Lux Eterna came out, he goofed on it. He did a just him in his overalls sitting in his office. It's on YouTube. He did Lux Eterna. It's pretty badass. And you should go check it out. Danny Barnes doing Lux Eterna.
Danny Barnes had a band at one time called the Bad Livers, and it was basically a bluegrass band.
I've seen that band. I've seen the name. Yeah.
And they used to do like metal covers. I've seen them do Metallica, Motorhead, Slayer. They used to do Die by the Sword, and they would just hillbilly the heck out of it, And so it's got banjo and Die by the Sword, and. So if you're not familiar, you might stand up bass, banjo, fiddle player. You would probably appreciate that if you're into bluegrass, because those guys were really good players.
I think he did Misfits and shit too.
Misfits and,
the thing is old Misfits is kind of like rockabilly anyway.
It is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
just sped up rockabilly.
Yeah, that feel is there.
So, Jack, where are we on new music for Exodus?
We're not really sure because we were talking about maybe doing it at the end of the year, but I think we're going to actually do some more touring. So, but it's definitely on our lips. We just don't know exactly when we're going to do it. I would say next year we'll do one, because I think we're touring into December this year, and then I think we'll do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I know the last album set the bar pretty high, but I have confidence that you guys will match it or supersede it. So
Gary says the next one's going to be better. So
wow. Well, I'm not going to question Gary Holt.
yeah, I've learned to not. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the part about, you talked about how you felt like you were sort of, I don't remember the words you used, getting in the way in between Gary and Tom's writing sessions. And that says a lot about you. And it also says a lot about other people that you may have known, insisting that, well, I got to be there because I want y'all to use some of my shit. And obviously you're not that guy. And my hat's off to that, because it takes a lot to know when it's like, these fucking guys don't need me. I'm going to wait until these guys are juicy. They're figuring it out. I mean,
I wanted to be there, and hey guys, I'm here. And, and then I'm like, you guys fucking do this. I'm not, call me when you're done.
Right. Well, it takes some, it would take others, some people, a lot of pride crush to, bail, well, these fucking guys don't need me. So that's cool. During the Slayer years for Gary, were all with Steve Zetro started a podcast, and you were in Nashville, probably plenty busy. Is that about right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, we toured as Exodus, that whole time. We just had Craig playing guitar for us. And, we were having great shows,
I saw,
even without Gary. So.
I saw Exodus and Slayer together. Gary opened for himself.
Yeah.
I saw that here in Austin. It was a while ago now. Yeah, but
we did. I think we did 2 or 3 tours with Slayer.
Yeah.
And I think they got
Suicidal.
Suicidal.
That's right. I saw that show.
With Rob Zombie.
Gary opened for himself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was.
I think Slayer finally went. Yeah. I think finally they didn't like him coming on stage already. Having already had played. You know what I mean? And they're like, "Hey, we're Slayer. I want 100% out of you," which makes sense to me.
Sure.
They were great. I mean, Slayer was great to us. It boosted our profile a lot, having Gary, in the band, and none of us cared. Like, none of us were upset that Gary was doing it. Like, it only brought a lot more attention to our band, and it gave Gary something that he deserved anyway. Which was
well, and
truckloads of guitars and amps, and mindless adulation, and fire, and shit like that. So
that's good. That's cool. You're gleaming a little bit when you talk about it, and that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, that is. It was awesome watching Gary. It was killer watching Gary and Slayer. I mean, it was killer.
Seeing your bro live out partial fantasy, yet he's on stage with his buddies that he's known his whole life. So that's pretty rad. I would imagine, it's probably a question for Gary, but I would imagine that there was when Jeff passed, there was no audition process. It's like, well, I guess we just call Gary.
Well, Gary was already in the band before he died,
Right.
And that was Jeff. Like, Jeff said, get Gary.
Oh, right. Okay. Wow. I guess I didn't hear that part of the story.
There was no. They just called Gary and said, Yeah, they were like, "You're the only one that can do this, so come down and do it." And
He was
the first time I saw Gary, and it was at the Big Four at Indio, and that Jeff came out and played that day. He came out and did Angel of Death, and I saw his arm; it was all like fucked up.
Whoa.
Like it had healed, but there was all this tissue, missing and stuff like that. And he came out and played, and so I thought like he was going to come back. You know what I mean? Like I thought Gary was going to do this for a little while, then Jeff would come back, and so it was kind of a surprise when he didn't.
Maybe that's why I was confused a little bit, but I didn't. Jeff even. It just makes total sense. Jeff go, well, there's only one guy you need to get, and he's standing. You already have his number. So
totally.
That's no greater blessing than Jeff.
Man, that's fucking cool. Jack, you've gone above and beyond today, hanging out with us and telling us some stories and kind of where some kind of starting point and where you are now and man, it's just by weird shadows and light getting to bump into you and be on stage with you. Was totally. Just in a very short time and having you on the show today. It's really been a gas. I appreciate you so very much.
Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Hopefully we can get on stage again sometime. It'd be fun.
I would love to.
Yeah. Jack, thank you so much for your time today, man. I really appreciate it, getting to know you. Thanks for sharing so much about yourself with us and our listeners. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our special guest today, Jack Gibson of Exodus on the Talk Louder podcast.